What about you, Paulie? Am I on? Am I off? What do you think?
I think you're on. And again, I think, house money, why not? I mean, Smith, obviously, it's not his natural position. For Miller, it is. Maybe bring him in and he sparks it a little bit. Because maybe, more than anything, KD, is if this is what we're talking about, it's the defensive side. Look, there's kind of been a little trendy thing going on with the forwards. As much as Mika is playing well, and a couple of the other guys, too, as well up front. But there's some really poor back-checking going on. And there's some really poor coverage in front of the net as far as the centers coming back. I don't know exactly what the plus-minuses are right now. I'm just like seeing flashes in front here and kind of remembering who's been in front of the net when goals have been scored. Some poor defensive coverage. The other thing, too, about the way the Rangers play, is against the Caps, it really stood out, obviously, and because a guy like Ovechkin, I just don't understand why he's not shadowed. Nobody does it throughout the league. I mean, back in the days in the 94 run, too, and you got a guy like Tikkanen, and even Tikkanen in his years with Edmonton, that was his job. You know what I'm saying? It was just to go out there and cause trouble and stick on somebody. And Gary Howard used to do that with the Islanders, too. And that just doesn't seem to really happen these days in the NHL. If Alex Ovechkin gets on the ice, just put a shadow next to him. I just don't get it. I mean, he buries those last two goals in that game. And it's crazy. But I see that the wings always seem to be – our wingers seem to be deep. The point men on the other team seem to always get a lot of room at the top of the blue line. And if you look back at some of the goals, especially in the Devil game too, a lot of the teams that we're playing against are able to get this time at the top of the blue line. And this is 5-on-5 too. Obviously, the penalty kill's been struggling here the last week or so too, or I should say. But even on 5-on-5, have you noticed that whatever system, and this is more on the forward side that I'm talking about more than anything, is that the point men on the other teams are getting a lot of room and a lot of space on the blue lines, and they're able to unload and throw a lot of shots. So you can look at a lot of games where there's deflections against Georgiev, too, and Shesty, and even Hank, too, being left hung out to dry. That just seems to be a common thing. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just been the way that they play defense. I don't think they really put a lot of.
It's not a good way to play defense.
Well, no. Well, we've been talking about it all year that they don't put pressure on the other team at all. Whether it's a forecheck, which in January it felt like they started to go a little bit harder on the forecheck. But for the most part, their forwards aren't forechecking. They're backing off. It seems as though and they're not putting any pressure on the guys in the neutral zone, and then they give up the blue line. So, and then, like you mentioned, even when the opponent has the puck in the zone, they're sort of sloughing down, allowing the point shots from up top. So, it just seems as though their defensive system is like a non-pressure system. It's, box it in and, I don't know, it be there for the rebounds or whatever it may be. But, yeah, no, I mean, there hasn't been pressure on the puck all season long. As soon as they're on defense, whether it's on the forecheck, neutral zone, or as the other team is coming, over the blue line, they just give the blue line up. If you look at most of the time as the opponent is entering the blue line, the defensemen are below the circles. I mean, they're just allowing the teams to skate in, which has been pretty much what leads to defensive problems because the opponent comes in with speed and then they're chasing. And, that's just not a great way to play defense. The guys end up being out of position, and it goes on from there. So, again, I mean, we've discussed the defensive system all year. It's been a problem. They definitely got better like I had mentioned, it had definitely gotten better from December to February. But, it seems like they're running around a bit again. And I don't know what happened or why it happened. I mean, is it Brady Shea? I mean, I think it was starting to trend the wrong way before they traded him. So I don't think it was that. But
again, I'm trying to look at the forwards here, the positions of the forwards when we turn and we're on a defensive end.
Yeah, I just
when
think
the puck is dumped in. It seems like I said, there's always a lot of room at our blue line for their defensemen they just seem to. There's not a lot of pressure from the wingers. And our talent, the guys, our centers and stuff up the middle are kind of getting a little lost and stuff. And I mean, obviously the team is big on transition and speed with Panarin and Stromer and Hedl and everything else. And you can kind of see where a lot of the Rangers' goals kind of end up. There's a lot of similar type of play. So you can kind of get a flow of how the Rangers kind of break out and create their scoring chances and everything else. But I'm just looking on the forward side when they come back, it just seems that the teams are getting a lot of time up front. Now, that's not so much on the defense and, say, Lindy Ruff's system. That seems to be something up front. Now, I don't know. I imagine Rick Carp is definitely probably – I haven't read one of his columns here in a couple of weeks, but I'm sure because Rick kind of really – he goes through everything during the game. But, through certain post-game conferences, I don't know if you've heard it. I haven't really seen anybody calling either the coaching staff out or maybe kind of, calling the team out in terms of that type of play, that kind of system. Because to me, KD, what I'm noticing, that just seems to be where a lot of the trouble gets caused with this team is that kind of a system where they're just not putting pressure on the point men when they come into our zone.
Yeah, like I said, I just think that's part of their defensive system. They don't pressure anything, whether it's the forwards or the defensemen. I mean, again, it's been like that all year. I just haven't seen any type of pressure from this team.
Fix it, Kevin. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, well, when I make my daily call over there, I left a message for Quinn last week. He didn't get back to me, so I'll call Lindy Ruff now and say, "What the hell are you doing with the forwards?" Holy's getting upset. But yeah, I mean, look, I think is just to go back to Condre. Where the defense is right now in the struggle, maybe a young guy comes in and gives him a boost. I mean, you got to look at that aspect too. I think the team could get fired up, seeing a big prospect come in, and maybe set the defensive in the right way. Look, emotion takes over at this time of year, and maybe that gives them a little bit of jolt right now as they're in a lull. So, I'd like to see it. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But my vote would be to bring him in.
All right. Well,
hey, look, Paulie.
Yeah,
he can't be worse than Kako. So, I mean,
nobody can be worse than Kako right now. I mean, come
on. Killing that kid.
Let's see Kravtsov. I mean, bring your boy Anderson back from Sweden. He's
been fantastic, by the way. He's been really good lately over there.
So maybe, Kako better stop. We're looking over his shoulder here. So, with my little note here on the forwards, what have you seen as far as the lines? What are you happy with and not happy with about over these last 5 games or the last 2 games, or anything that really stood out for you on Saturday against the Devils?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time. I would like to see Gauthier up there in the top 6 on that top line, and maybe get Giuseppe down. And look, I mean, obviously, Zibanejad obviously is playing like all world, and the Giuseppe's on the line with them, so maybe we don't want to take them off. But you like to get a little bit more scoring up top. It can't just always be Zibanejad and Panarin. I mean, because that's it right now. I mean, we're not really getting anything from the rest of the lineup, and we talked about on the last show that yeah, I mean, it's just not happening. I mean, and Gauthier really hasn't been given a chance yet. He's been sort of stuck on that fourth line, and hasn't really had a chance to get bumped up. So, maybe getting him up. Kako is now buried on the fourth line with McKegg and Lemieux now. And look, it's hard to make an argument that he deserves to be, in the top 6 or, even in the top 9 with the way he's been playing. You'd like to see him get, some more chances like you had mentioned last time, because why not? I think I love Foss, and you hate to get him down there, and I understand that he brings, you have to have some type of defensive responsibilities, in the top 6, but he's just not a top 6 player. So, I would just like to see, maybe him get down in on that bottom line, and maybe bring Gauthier up wherever you want to put him. Maybe get Kako in that top 6, see if that sparks him, because, you put him. I can't imagine if you put him on a line with Panarin that, he's not going to find the back of the net, because Panarin basically helps everyone find the back of the net. So, I just like to get him going. But, I'd like to see Quinn mix up that top 6 just a little bit there. I'd like to see more of what Gauthier is about, because I just don't think we've been able to see, his talents, fully on that fourth line. So that's really my biggest issue with what Quinn is putting out there right now. Look, he's sticking with the lineup, and I've given him grief all year long about changing lineups, and now look at me, he's keeping the lineup again, and I'm killing him for it. So, he can't win, but it's just my thought on it. Yeah, I guess you try to stick with what with the lineup and see what you can get with it, but that's just my thoughts on it. How about you, Paulie? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, just looking back at some of the games, I mean, obviously 10 goals in the last 2 games, it's not necessarily, they're averaging, I guess, where does it stand as far as the NHL these days in terms of what's a good average for a team to be scoring per game? So if you're 2 goals, two plus, average or 2 or 3 goals a game, I guess the Rangers are kind of in that window, even
but if you take Zibanejad out, they're probably,
look, we went in deep about that on the last episode as far as where Panarin and Mika, where would they be without them right now, and obviously Stromer's up there as far as, feeding people and everything else, and, Heedle's been spotty, and, the other guys too. Like I said,
who's been good? Who we didn't mention is Buchnevich. He's been very good.
Well,
in that
I give him a lot of credit. Not only that, just especially coming back from the car accident and everything, and he's been looking pretty good. I mean, I like what I'm seeing from him. For me, especially now that the whole trade thing is done and everything. I know we was discussed a little bit, but I think Bucci's here to stay. I mean, I think he's a good kid. He's a big kid, and I think he'll find his way. And again, this is here we are again, Kevin. It's like, as far as the future and everything looks bright, as far as that's concerned, I think all these guys right now are okay, and then we'll have to see what happens in terms of what other kinds of – they're going to need more scoring punch up front. So that's definitely something that J.D. Gorton, and now we'll talk about this too, the extension that him and Drury got as far as, their future here with the team and everything else. I mean, that's all stuff that's going to be great for this team down the road. But as far as right now, they'd be in a hell of a lot of trouble if Zibanejad was down, if Panarin went down again right now. Because the rest of the guys really, they've been popping in goals. You go down the score sheet, we're still getting, the guys in the back here, D'Angelo and Fox. I mean, Foxy's just been, I love watching that guy play, man. I mean, just to focus on him to here just a little bit. I mean, he's nowhere near him yet, but, man, he shows signs of, the way Leachy used to play, too, just in terms of the way he's got such great vision, the way he carries the puck up and setups and everything else. And, him and D'Angelo are actually logging more time now than Trouba is. They're both averaging between 22 and almost, 25 minutes per game. And, those 2 guys have pretty much been our workhorses right now. And, they're doing all right. That probably, leaves a little bit for, some of the defensive struggles and stuff in terms of how, Ruff is spreading out the ice time with the rest of the defensive core. But, when we sit back here, as far as everything going forward, we look good. Right now, the current situation is they put 4 goals in against the Devils in a losing cause. But sometimes it just seems that that energy or that magic that happened in the Capitals game, for me, it's kind of, I forget what the tweet that I put up on the Go Rangers account. It was like, sometimes I just don't get it. How are they not there, especially at this time of the year when you're looking at the scoreboard and you actually have a chance to try and get in there? Because, at the end of the day, Quinn and Gorton, JD, everybody at the top, they'd love to get these kids into the playoffs to get an advanced shot at the experience of going through at least a first-round series.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that goes back to, the reason why – they could beat the Capitals one game and then come back and lose to the Devils the next is that lack of depth. It's because if, Zibanejad isn't scoring 5 goals, they're going to have a tough time winning. Or the defense, they've been carried by, Zibanejad, Panarin, and Kreider for the last, 2 months. He really only started to turn it on in December. So, after that, and then the back end, without that, the rest of the forwards just haven't been there. They've definitely been spotty. So, that's a concern, I think, going into next season, or even, if you want to look at the stretch run first, who's going to step up? Like I mentioned, is Kakko going to step up? Where's Howden? I mean, Howden, I expected probably a little bit more from him this year. And Quinn has definitely stuck with him all year long. He's not a guy who they sent down to the AHL who may have deserved it at times.